No, my computer's frozen. All right, here we go. All right, we're good. Hey, friends, welcome back to the table, a church planting journey. My name is Trevor. I'm joined with my friend and co-pastor Ryan and a special guest today, Richie Griffith. He's based in Ohio, right? I should have asked that before we went live, but yeah, Ohio. Yep. We've got a guest on today. We're going to go over some questions with where he's at. Yeah, the Big O, right? Big Ohio. Are you Ohio? Are you a Buckeye fan? That's the real question.
Oh yeah, OH.
Okay, that's good. That's good. I got some cousins that are big Buckeye fans. So, but yeah, we are rocking into it. Another episode today. We're planning to discuss church planting in the middle of a pandemic again, because that's just the topic for the year. With our friend Richie here. But before we get into it, Ryan, how you doing? What's new with you? Where you at, buddy?
Things are good. I had a really busy day yesterday. Trevor and I had lunch with a local house church planter, which was really good. I got coffee with another church planter in the morning. Just been and then we had an awesome Zoom call yesterday with a possible church plant, a house church pastor that might be joining the team. So I know I'm jumping the gun, but if you guys want to pray for that, that'd be great. And then also, I'm officially a sub. I can substitute now. So hide your kids, hide your wife. I'm gonna. The funny thing is, I got my lanyard, my badge yesterday, and next week is spring break, so
can't even work.
So I'm not gonna sub for at least a week. But other than that,
some time to watch those COVID videos, all the trainings.
Yeah, things have been pretty good. Got a big rugby scrimmage tomorrow. Gonna go out and hopefully not kill myself. So
please. Nice. Richie, how you doing? What's new with you? I mean, everything's new with you for our listeners because nobody knows who you are yet. But what's up with you? What are you doing?
Yep. Now the big thing this week is my worship pastor is preaching, so I have the week off of that, and so that's been awesome. And so I've been writing our new people, or we call it our Movement 101 course. And so I've been writing that curriculum and getting that mastered and ready and getting ready to get printed. And so that's been big this week. Dude, I did not sub this week, but I am also a substitute in my district. And a best thing to sub is gym class. So
note to self.
Yes, I drew the short straw because whenever I did gym class, I walked in and they gave me a booklet of how to set the gym up for bowling, and it took me 6 hours just to set up for bowling. And so the principal came in and apologized. Was like, "Man, this is bad." I was like, "That's all good." So,
oh my goodness, that's hilarious. Too fun.
I didn't know you could set up a gym to bowl. I have new goals.
Yep. Lots of PVC piping, and they use these hard rubber bowling balls and then normal bowling pins. Wow. So it's pretty legit. Definitely youth pastor games.
Oh yeah, that's exactly where my brain was going the whole time. When you start saying PVC and hard rubber balls, I'm like, oh, that's youth pastor right there.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
Very cool.
Yeah. So that's been the week for me, man. It's been a good week though.
Good. Yeah, I've had a normal week. I passed my drug test, which means I'm negative. I found out, so I didn't have to do drugs. Thank the Lord, because I don't. Yeah, right. But that means that this March 22nd, I should officially be a police dispatcher with Gilbert PD. Shout out to my background investigator who listens to the show. It's been good. I mean, finally we have some peace to okay, income is coming. We're able to take this breath, and it's going to be a transition, obviously, but it's exciting I think basically the entirety of this podcast up to this point, I've joked about the unemployment stuff. So I don't have to do that anymore. It's great. But other than that, I mean, nothing crazy. We shot a video yesterday for our big barbecue events coming up. So we're excited about it. I guess it's not necessarily big because it's neighborhood big, but it's big for us since we've only had 10 people at this point. So yeah. So today, friends, if you are listening on the podcast, we appreciate it, but you can always jump on over to our YouTube channel, thetablenaz.church/YouTube, and you can watch this and you can see who our guest is today. Richie Griffith. He is a guy that we met a week ago. We were in a DCPI training, which we've talked about DCPI in the past. It's a great training for church planting. Honestly, not just church planting, but churches in general. I think every church leader should at least take some form of DCPI, whether it's the new church dynamics or churches planting churches, any of those, the great trainings that they host. But it was cool to kind of hear some of Richie's story. And we just wanted to give him an opportunity to share with you guys who are listening today what that looks like. So Richie, tell us, one, who you are, where are you? We already said you're, Ohio Buckeyes fan, but what are you doing? What craziness? I mean, well, it depends. Did you plant during the pandemic or not? We'll find out. Let us know. Tell us who you are, Richie.
Very cool. Yeah. So I'm Richie Griffith, and I've been in ministry now for just at 10 years. Served as a youth pastor for 9.5, and then now a church planter. And we planted in Tripp City, Ohio, which is just north of Dayton, Ohio. So perfect location. We're an hour from Cincinnati, an hour from Columbus, and then right in the middle of over by Dayton. So it's a great spot. But we are a church plant that just launched November 1st. And so we're pretty stoked about that.
Oh yeah. So right in the middle of the pandemic is what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh man. Well, that's good stuff. So we know a little bit of who you are. So tell us, what's your church? I think I might have spoiled it. I can't remember if we're recording yet or not, but I said the name. But what is your church? What do you guys do? Where can we find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are Movement Church. And so you can find us at movementchurch.community. And when we launched our church, man, it was like one of the craziest things. I don't know if I'm jumping ahead too far or not, but like,
no, go for it.
Yeah.
We actually, I left our district fall retreat because I serve, if you're in the Nazarene world, I serve as district president of our Northwest Ohio district. And so I oversee the youth groups and stuff. And so I literally just left our fall retreat, and I made a phone call to a buddy of mine that just retired from ministry. And I said, hey man, I said, I think I'm done with this youth pastor stuff. Like God's calling me to something different. And never once told the dude that like I was into church planning, like never told him that I went to Exponential Conference or anything like that, like that I was doing readings in church planning. And I told him, I said, maybe I'm being called to be like an evangelist or something. And he was like, no, like, I think you're being called to plant a church. And so like right there on the spot, we prayed, we talked, we got our wives together. And 6 days later, he came out of retirement and to help me plant the church, and came on as my executive pastor. And so that was back November of 2019. And then we very quickly put together a plan of how we were going to launch, what launch was going to look like, what the church was going to look like, how much money we needed to have, everything.
Yeah.
And then as everybody here knows, March came around and everything changed from that point. And we were already going through the process of getting approved and what the church was going to look like, how the district was going to help. Even at that point, we went through our church plan assessments and went through all that stuff. And like we were rocking. And all of a sudden the pandemic hit, and we had questions from the district and from other people that were just like, hey, like maybe you ought to wait till the pandemic's over before you do this. And it was very obvious to us that that was not God's plan to pull the cord on that one. And so we continued on with it. And what we ended up having to do was, honestly, it's probably about July, probably right as things were getting really bad here in Ohio. In July, we had to make a decision to completely redo what the church was going to look like. And so we took a step back and really started processing hard, and had to come up with a plan that was very hard for a lot of people to comprehend. And we had a lot of pastors that really struggled with our vision of how it was going to look, what it was going to look like. And so we pursued it, continued to pursue it, prayed through budgets. And then finally, a month before launch, we finally got a facility, built the facility out, soft launched in October while we were building the facility out. And then the last piece of construction went in the week right before we were launching, and then we launched November 1st. And so it was
Wow.
crazy stuff.
That is so cool, dude. So before we go, I want to go in depth on that a little bit. I want to hear some more before.
Yeah, man.
So you were planning to plant in November regardless, like that was the plan. You didn't change that date. That was like, we're planning in November, right? That was your OG plan?
Actually, our first plan was like super aggressive. Our first plan was we were going to launch in September.
Oof.
And when we went through the church plan assessment, and even before that, like we did research on when the best times to launch a church was.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the best times was in the fall when the kids go back to school.
Yep.
But that was like a top time. And so we went through the assessment program and everything. And then we sat down at dinner one evening and sat next to Mark Bain, who's one of the district church plant guys, and killer guy, lots of ideas. And so we sat down and we really started to process launch. And he said, look, guys, he goes, I know that you say September works, and I agree, like September is a good time for churches, but you need to look at like November, because that's really the new time people come in. Or really, you probably need to look at February. And I was like, February is not an option, man. Like, yeah. God's called us to do it this year. Like, it's time for this to happen. And so we really prayed about moving that, but we went on what Mark's suggestion was, and we bumped it from September back to November 1st, which turned out to be amazing.
Yeah, and you guys are just killing it right now. I pulled up your website and your Facebook, and I'm just loving what I'm seeing. So we're in the same vein where we were planning to launch February, because that was one of the things that we had seen. February is a great time to launch, Super Bowl Sunday. And, pandemic happened. We were looking at February 2021, like just this last month. And, we had to reevaluate and do all that exact same stuff of, we really felt called to launch 2021 as well, but we couldn't just wait for the pandemic to be over, because like, when is it going to be over? Right? Like, it could be over in May, when some people say, or it could go until 2023. Like, we can't wait. Like God's going to move regardless of like our hard and fast timelines. But so it sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, but you kind of were looking at maybe a more traditional model, and then you guys had to do some radical changes because of the pandemic, and maybe just your vision was, God was expanding it. And I don't want to spoil anything. I'm gonna let you take it all, but you guys are doing some like wicked cool stuff with your outreach, right? And how you're doing church. Yep. Just explain some of that. What did you change from your model that made pastors kind of freak out? Because we feel the same way. We're doing that non-traditional thing, and people are like, are you sure? Like, when are you buying the building? We're like, we're not. But like, tell us that with, what were some of those concerns, and now what are you doing? If you guys don't know, like, head over to movementchurch.community. I'm looking at the website right now. It's awesome. Like, you got to see what Richie and his team are doing. These guys are killing it. But tell us. Sorry, I'll stop talking.
No, you're good. You're good. So when we first got the idea, my executive pastor is, I may be wrong on this, I think he's 68. All right. So he's an older dude, came to know the Lord at like 55. And so, but awesome guy. And so we sat down, we talked, and I said, here's my biggest thing when it comes to youth, like looking at the district, is as a district level, man, we and the local church is guilty of this too. We cater to the high school kids and the junior high kids like crazy. And then it's like they graduate, and it's like we kick them in the butt and tell them, see you later. Yeah. Like, here's a Bible and a devotion. Good luck. Yeah. And, I don't need to preach about this, because everybody knows that that's the age then that people start leaving the church. And we were like, man, we need to be a church for that. Like, why do we need to go to a retreat to get fired up about church? Why do we need to do different? Why do we have to go somewhere different to experience God in different ways? And so that like immediately sparked our vision, which was just simply that we wanted to experience God in new ways together. And so we knew that our demographic, even from the beginning, was going to be 20 years old. But we also knew that if we went in and talked to a bunch of pastors and said 20 years old, that people were gonna be like, it ain't gonna happen. You can't do that. And so we were vague. Like, we just said, they said, who's your demographic? And we said, everybody. Like, we gave the churchy answer, who's your demographic? Everybody. They're like, no, it doesn't work that way. we need to know your identical, who your demographic is going to be. And it's like, it's going to be young people. Like, well, like 30, 40. It's like, no, like 20 years old. And I said, like our vision was that if we shot with a demographic of 20 years old, that we would have young families and they would be fed by that. And then they were like, well, what about the old people? It's like, well, if the old people come in, it's because they're seeing their family growing. And then that's what's going on with that. And so all of a sudden you have this dynamic of age groups. And so our church, like last month, just to like jump around, I did my survey on age and everything. And right now our current age average is 19 years old at our church.
Wow, dude,
and
congrats. That's awesome.
Thanks. And so it's pretty cool, killer with that. But like, so we, like you said, like it was kind of a traditional model. We knew that we wanted to reach young demographic. We knew that we were going to do different things in worship. We knew that we weren't going to use a bunch of churchy terms. We knew that we wanted to be different. We did not want to be inside of a church. We looked at a warehouse first, and God kind of revealed things in different ways to us whenever it came to that. But then when it came finally time to like, let's go, like COVID hit, and we were like, dude, we know that we need to do something different. That's when we started challenging people far greater than that. Like our prayer to God was just simply this. It was like, show me what I can't see. Like I can see what other people are doing, but show me the unseen. Like, what's this look like? And so when we went in, we were bold about it. We said 20 years old. Every single thing we do is going to have a 20-year-old in mind. God bless us with a worship leader who was 20 years old, just out of college, just graduated college, and a plant team that had 19, 20-year-olds on it, and all these different people. And so it was awesome to see how God worked in that time. But then we came forward and we said, man, like, here's the deal. COVID forced a lot of churches to go online, and not everybody was happy with having to go online. But we knew that in today's society, online church and online discipleship is crucial.
Yeah.
And so we started exploring that. And we were like, man, like we believe that when we launch this church, we're going to launch this church 30% in person, 70% online. And so like we geared everything towards that. And so like what was hard for a lot of guys to comprehend was that, we're putting together a budget that was like 3 times the amount, the budget that church planners typically start with. But we were like, I believe that this is what God's giving us. And so like we were challenging them with that. And then on top of that, you had the 20-year-old demographic in there, and they're like, they don't give, they don't serve. And then on top of that, then we're talking about how we're going to buy stuff. And it's like, hey, we're going to buy all this video equipment. And they're like, wait, like we record with iPhones at our church.
Right.
Or we record with these little Panasonic cameras. Like, why do you need those? And it's like, because we're going to be 70% online, we need to have multiple cameras, multiple views. Like, this is how it's going to work. And so like process that. And for a lot of people, that was hard to understand. But really what it came down to is instead of spending all this money on sound equipment, we spent the money on cameras. And so we got speakers that was good for our 2,000 square foot building that God put us in. And but then we spent more money on our video equipment so that we could have a quality online experience. And so we challenged it with that, and really pushed hard. And man, God has provided literally every step of the way. I got a chance to announce the other day to our district that 95% of our young people 17 to 24 are tithing.
Praise the Lord.
Like, think about that. Like, that's crazy. And then on top of tithing, they're serving.
Yeah. Well, like
so,
I hear those claims all the time. Oh, young people don't serve. Young people don't give. I'm like, I feel like we just don't give the opportunity for them. And when we do, they will, because I mean, I'm young, I'm 28. I always since I was 17, 16 years old, I've always been in the church serving in some capacity. Yeah. My mom's a pastor. My grandpa was a pastor. Like some of it's heritage, I know, but I had the opportunity. People trusted me to do things and they encouraged me. I've always had those mentors along the way. Like I'm loving this, man, because we have to break that mindset. Like if we want the church to change, if we want that demographic that you're reaching out to, you're doing it, people need to look at you, Richie, and say, okay, Master Richie, teach me. what does my church need to do to, because
Yeah.
I could go on for hours there.
I think it's one of those things like, yeah, like also like a lot of churches say like, oh, we want young people, but they don't give young people any responsibility. They don't give them any opportunities to serve. It's like, it's kind of like the unsaid rule is like, okay, well, when you're older and more mature, then you can do things. So.
Yeah. Hey, so listen to this. Talk about young people, right? Giving people the keys. I think there's a book about that. But launch day, right? Launch day is your biggest day. So you're like A game across the board, right? So we had a 6th grade student running sound on opening day for launch. We had a 4th grade student running our lighting on opening day. We had a 7th grade student on one of the cameras. And then we had another junior high student that was in the back helping to produce the show and everything that was going on live stream. Man. Like, that's what I'm talking about, man. Like, these kids know how to do it. They know what they're doing. If you give them
like, they're probably all streaming on Twitch on the weekends, after school. They're already doing this all the time. And I feel you, dude. It's like when the pandemic all happened and we, like, so many churches were like, well, okay, the fastest way to do it, buy a Zoom account and do discipleship that way and, hook up the iPhone. I remember both Ryan and I at our churches, we became these streaming masters. And I have that kind of step up. I actually have been streaming on Twitch since like 2010. Well, before it was called Justin TV. So like I told our church, this is what we need. We need 10 grand to buy this camera. I was like, if we want to do it right, we're not just this isn't going to just be a 3-month, 4-week process. If we don't want to do it right, we need to get these cameras, we need to get this switcher, and we need to buy this. They were looking at like this $5,000 Mac. I'm like, I will build you a $2,000 PC that's going to be better than that. They're like, you build computers? I'm like, yes, sir. Yeah, I got my computer right here next to me. I built myself. I'll just pat myself on the back there. I feel good. But but then on that end, when it came to them producing, it was me. Like it was the me show where I, luckily I had a Ralph. Praise the Lord. Ralph is awesome. Like, love the guy. He and I kind of put the whole thing together. But as I was transitioning out, trying to train up those people, I had brought up, we need to get our kids up here. Like, they know how to do it. We tried. I'm not there no longer. So I tried my best before my last day there to get those people. But man, I love hearing that you got those kids in there, sir. And like, then there's ownership, right? Those kids are there. They want to be a part of it. They want to make it good. And from day one, I love it. That's so good.
Yeah. One of the things when it came to technology for us that we came to the realization on was that the pandemic forced a lot of people to take that next step, but the next step was already needed about 6 years ago. And, when I was in school, I graduated in 2005. And so when I was in school, if a friend asked like, hey, what are you doing on Easter? You would say, I'm going to church. If you didn't say I'm going to church, then people might be like, well, why aren't you going to church? Like, what's the deal? Like, and I didn't even really I didn't grow up in like a Christian school. It was just a public school. Like, that was just the deal. Now it's so different. And one of the things that they really pushed when we went through church plan assessment was intentional relationships. And so they were talking the importance of having those intentional relationships as a church planner. You have to have them. If you don't have them, you're never going to be successful. Well, the reality was, and this is one of the things that we talked about, was that the reality comes back is that we want people to have an intentional relationship with Jesus, but yet we're only giving them a 9 a.m. and a 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. time slot to have that relationship with Jesus and to be able to come in and experience him in a worship setting, where what we did was we said, look, when people prioritize soccer, baseball, football, rugby, whatever, over coming to church, the church was very quick to shame them and say, dude, like, you have to make that option. And I'm guilty of that too. Like, I can remember a time where I told a parent, like, dude, you have your priorities. Like, you make your choice. But what they want is to have an intentional relationship with Jesus. And that can be done in between soccer games while they're sitting on a soccer field during a tournament. That could be done with a bunch of soccer moms back waiting for practice to end. That could be done at their home once the tournament's over. Why do you have to sacrifice making the championship soccer game to come to church that morning? Because even if you do that, what are you thinking about the entire time? You're thinking about the soccer game. You're thinking about the baseball game. You're thinking about what's coming up next. So why not intentionally experience Jesus on the time that makes sense for you? And so that's why for us, like, it's such an important thing to be able to have church at home with family, with watch parties, because that's how we discipleship at home. That's how we do that type of thing. That's how we're still able to go through life together, and it's so important for us.
Yeah, maybe you mentioned the watch parties. I don't think you've explained that. Can you explain what that is and how that got started?
Yeah, sure. So two of our biggest ministries that we do is we call them fam groups. And so fam groups are just small groups that either meet at the church, in people's homes, in coffee shops, wherever it is. And those are groups. Some are like women's groups, some are men's groups, some are teen groups, college groups. I mean, they're just variety of stuff. All right. And so we've got those, and those are where like the bread and butter takes place. Like that's it. And then we have watch parties. And what the watch parties are is, when we were looking at being 70% online, we did not want to create a bunch of consumers. And a lot of times with online church, that's what you get is a bunch of consumers. They show up, they eat, and they leave. And we had to figure out a way that we could make discipleship take place, a community of people still take place online. And so what we do is we get viewers that watch us online. And what we've realized is the most effective thing for us to do was originally we were we would stream on Facebook, and then we would pull it down immediately. We'd stream on Facebook, pull it down immediately. But what we realized was that was hurting everybody else because they want to be able to watch that and worship on their own time, with their own group. And so what we do now is we stream, and then we take one of the services down. Then they're able to stream that for the next couple days. And what they do is they get together with their family. They invite friends over, however that is, and they meet together, and they worship together. And then what we're able to do is we can create questions for them if that's what they want in their group. And they can work through questions when it comes to the sermon, like, let's rehash this out. They can do some stuff like that. We're actually getting ready to start a new thing where watch parties and live in person, they can actually text a number when they get a question during a sermon. And we're going to address that on a Monday night podcast that we're getting ready to start, to where we're going to be able to sit down and say, hey, look, here's some questions that came up throughout the sermon, and we're going to answer those. And so, but it's getting those people together to be able to do that. Then what we do is that we train them to be able to disciple other people. And so, if you Ryan were to jump on and you were a part of this, and it was just you by yourself, we would have that phone call with you, that talk with you, and we'd say, hey man, like, we love that you're joining us, but can we get somebody to connect with you? Do you have a friend that would love to come? Well, yeah, I've got a friend. I got my buddy Josh, and he's going to come in. And so all of a sudden now you just reach out to your buddy Josh. So you and Josh, you guys watch the service together. And now we challenge Josh, like, hey Josh, who do you have? And so all of a sudden now you start multiplying that way. But what we just created was, Ryan, you started, but now we just created Josh, who's also starting one. And eventually you guys are going to get big enough that you're going to now have to split into 2 watch parties and experience this together in different homes or different places. And so that's kind of the whole mentality behind that, is that we empower you to then take that next level. And something that a lot of Nazarene churches don't do, and I don't know why, and maybe we're just rebels or something, but like, we love the fact that here soon we're going to have a watch party that's going to baptize, and they're going to baptize from their home. And it's like, that's awesome to me. Like, I don't need to be the one to do that. I get it. Like, I'm the the pastor at the church, but I can't get out to where they're at. And so to be able to witness that and be a part of that, I'm stoked. Like, I'm excited about it. But that's what our watch parties are. It's community people experiencing God together in their own homes. So it's kind of going back to the original church.
Yeah, it sounds so natural. Like, when you're explaining, like, hey, you find that person, they want to connect, so you connect with them right away, and then you're already teaching them to disciple without them knowing it, right? Like, you're saying,
Yep.
Who's your friend? Like, who can you get? It's so natural. I feel like we've tried to create so many formulas within the church to, like, well, they come to Sunday school and that's where they learn to disciple, and after like the 6-week process was Nazarene 101, then they'll be comfortable enough to disciple. But at that point, like, they don't know everything right away, so they don't feel comfortable because, well, I don't remember, like, what sanctification meant, or like, I mean, that's a big church word right there, eh? But you know, where you're at is just like simply just invite, like care, love, you know, that, I mean, it goes back to that premise like you're talking about in Acts, you know, the early church, like love your neighbor, like hang out with the people you hang out with and do church that way, rather than making it this, you know, come to spectacle event that, oh, we drive 14 miles to go to church on Sunday. It's like, no, we have church in my house with my friends when it's convenient for me, which, I mean, I'll play devil's advocate here, but like, do you feel like that could create this consumerism type of church? Or maybe you've already kind of thought about that and how you're going to counter it, but like, how do you create those deep, intimate, you know, disciple moments that continue and grow, rather than just, oh, we watch church on Tuesday? I mean, going back to eventually getting into that same place trap that we've all fell into on Sundays of, I remember like I tried to go to hockey on Sunday mornings. That never happened. That was sacrilegious in my home. Like, you miss hockey on Sundays, Trevor. You have to listen to Pastor from the pulpit. And I'm like falling asleep, just dreaming about like being on the ice with my team and like scoring the winning goal, you know?
Yeah. So there's two big things that we are like in the works with when it comes to this. The first one is that we're going to get people serving regardless of where they're at. And so right now we're developing our online teams, and we're going to have a training coming up in the next probably about a month. We're probably about a month out from getting this going, but where we will train people in their homes regardless of where they're at in the world, and they'll be able to come in, be a part of assimilating and be first impressions online and be a part of that. And then also, you know, teach up the fact that, hey, we're training and we're doing this stuff in your own home as well. Like, how are we creating disciples? How are we serving? We're going to do something that's called Engage Week coming up this summer in June. And Engage Week is nothing but serving. And our goal is to not just serve here locally where we're at, but it's to serve with every watch party, every person that's being a part of this, to go out and serve and be a part of things. And I think that's the number one hardest thing for churches when it comes to this, is like, you know, people need to serve. Absolutely, they need to serve, but you need to get creative in the way they can serve. Because who says that I can't, like, if I got somebody who is super creative with like video editing, why can't I drop some videos that we shoot into a file and send it to them and have them edit on the other side? And so I think a lot of times, you know, we find ourselves in a place that we almost put ourselves in a box, and it's like, dude, you got to do something, think outside the box a little bit. And even if it's hosting, like if we got somebody, let's say we had somebody in Washington that was super talented in music, like who's to say that Movement Church can't host a worship night at a local coffee shop in Washington? Like, that's what it's all about. And it's about empowering those people. And so we do, as a church, the majority of the things that we do are hybrid things. And so we have physical, your inside location, processing something like the other night we have an adult study that they're talking through James, but it's also broadcast online. And so anybody can jump into that group and be a part of that conversation. Our women's group, they meet on Zoom and they meet live in person, to where everybody can see what's going on, everybody can hear everything, but women from across the country can join and be a part of this and not miss out. And the whole point of those groups is to train, disciple, teach, and then send. And so now they're, not only are we sending and multiplying, but they're sending and multiplying. And so that's a big part of what we do.
Seriously, dude, that is like, that's so cool. I'm like getting excited because we're gonna borrow some of these ideas. So just know the table's gonna be to borrowing some of this, because
please do.
It just makes sense, right? Like in Ryan and I, you know, we were planning and getting ready to get ready for the table pre-COVID, and we were having some of these same ideas that COVID forced churches into. You know, we were thinking digital, we were thinking hybrid, and now we have to, like, everyone, not just new starts, not just, you know, restarts. It's everyone has to figure that out. And eventually post COVID, like, we have to also continue. It's not just well, it was during the pandemic, you know, we tried it, but we only saw 3 people on Zoom. So is it worth it? Like, break that mindset. They're worth it, right?
Yeah.
What
and our big thing.
Oh no. I just have a quick follow-up. I just to what you were saying, because I think it's really cool, like the whole idea of like it doesn't matter where you're at, like physical location. What I mean, and your answer could be I don't know. So please be honest. But like, what's your plan? Like, are you planning on like maybe like yeah, if we get enough watch parties in like Indiana, we'll like plant another campus, or are you just gonna wait and see, or is there a plan, or I don't know.
Dude, that's 100% the plan,
Oh
actually.
yeah.
So right now, what I'm processing through is I'm doing my research as best I can on where is the U.S. and I'm focusing just in the U.S. right now. Where in the U.S. are churches lacking? And so when we launched, see, our worship pastor came from Washington, and so when we launched our church, we actually advertised. We did Facebook boosts in Washington when we launched, and she went to NNU, and we targeted that area when we launched. We targeted, there was a few other areas that we knew that we were going to be a little heavier on, and so we actually Facebook boosted in those areas. We didn't Facebook boost but more than maybe $100 in our local area. And so when we start to figure out where these watch parties are, we're going in and we're boosting all these advertisements. We're hitting those areas as much as we can. And even one of the goals is to go in and at some point throughout the summer or something, find a bigger watch party and go in and join them for a weekend. And literally maybe even stream church from their living room or from their area that they're meeting in. But our goal is to continually multiply. And so every single thing that we have set up is geared towards multiplication. So if you walk into a fam group, you're being told from day one that this group is not going to be the same group in 6 weeks because they're going to multiply. And I tell all of my leaders, like, you better be training your replacement, because your replacement, it may not be you leaving, but it might be them leaving to go plant another church. And so in every single aspect of the church, we should have somebody that's being raised up to now be able to take and multiply. And so I told my team the other day, I said that in 2022, we're going to plant our second church. And I said that could look like us planting our main base campus, our broadcast location, or it could be that we plant another smaller location. But what this has proven to us, and if I could like say anything to church planners or even churches that are like, dude, I don't know if we could multiply, we are proving right now that you can launch and you can have a 2,000 square foot area and you can still do church in the midst of a pandemic. Our children's department right now, on a Sunday morning, we can have 20 to 30 kids in a room that is 18 by 18. It's a tiny stinking room. You put kids in there from toddler to 5th grade, but they're learning, they're having fun, they're celebrating. And in our worship area, we're actually past 85-90% capacity right now in our second service, and we're having to move stuff around so that the people that are wanting to come to a little bit later services can. And so like, go for that 2,000 square foot facility. You don't need to drop $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a month on a facility. Get something where you can get in at it at a pretty reasonable price and hold services there. Like, ours is in a shopping center. And so you walk in and you have no idea this could be a church outside of the sign that says Movement Church. But like, you walk in there, we've got cafe style seating. Those are the ones that people fight over. Like, they want to sit at the cafe table and experience God from their seat while they got a coffee sitting on a table and their book open. Or we have like normal rows of chairs. If you're one of those old fashioned, I want to do it the traditional way, I'm going to sit in a row. But I think that's the most important part for us that we've learned, is that you don't have to settle with, oh, we need 5,000-10,000 square foot,
Well,
2,000.
Seriously. Well, even just breaking the mindset, because when I initially thought church planting back early 2019, I'm thinking of building, big budget, multiple people, and like to change the mindset. Like, yeah, we're doing house churches, but like, look at you, like 2,000 square feet. That's super reasonable, and you're not looking for 100 people to go launch. Like, you need 5 couples, right? You need just a couple people that are committed to the vision and to Christ to just go and do. And I mean, yes, there's going to be, all the hardships and all the planning and everything you got to do. But if you're a mother church looking, how can we reproduce? I remember hearing in that class that we met, that we were talking, through all this new church dynamics. And, we kept hearing from a couple of people like, our church is not a reproducing church. We're not there. We're in crisis mode. We can't, like, literally shutting down the conversation before it happens. And I get it. When you got a dozen people in your church multiplying and splitting, like, the multiplication word doesn't come. It's you're dividing at that point because you're taking people away. But if those 12 can grow with 6 and 6 and literally double, like, boom, 24, right? And that's what I keep trying to tell our core team and our launch team is, you need to be the most flexible people here. Like, you need to be willing to, we're going to be a house church in the future, because once we hit, like, we're not looking at multiplying when we're at 30, we're going to start looking at like 10 to 15. Who's my next leader? That when my house is too full and it's getting uncomfortable, where's that next church? Not thinking about it, past, but, at these smaller numbers, like, God can do this when you're faithful, right? Dude, Richie, I love it, man. You're getting me pumped up right now.
What do you, I mean, obviously it sounds like you guys have been pretty good at adapting and thinking outside the box. What are some like challenges you guys are facing now, or you see kind of maybe coming up in the future? What's the next thing you think you guys are going to have to start working through?
Yeah, so a couple things. I mean, I'm just being transparent. Like, the online thing, though it sounds like, we got a good plan together and everything, like, my biggest fear and my biggest prayer is that we don't lose people. And I'm not talking just like we don't lose members. Like, you know what, if somebody's watching us in Wisconsin and they can't get a watch party going, we don't want them to continue to go to church with us. Like, we want them to get plugged into a community of people there. And that's like number one. And I know not everybody's going to say that, but like, that's for us. Like, we're all about the kingdom. And we agreed to that when we planted. Like, it's all about kingdom driven. Like, how can we advance the kingdom? What is it that God's calling us to? And so that's a big thing. But man, being able to develop a strong online culture and community is so important to me. And we are just not there yet. And there's a lot of things that I'm trying to put into place and working in place, but I need that to be even. If we're 70% online, I need it to be 70% better than what we're doing in person. And I know that sounds kind of crazy, but like, it should be. Like, if we have people that are greeting people out in the parking lot, giving people, air high fives and connecting with people, they should be doing that plus more online. And we are not there yet. And so that's probably one of the biggest struggles for me. I think another struggle that we deal with is because our location is small. Listen, like, I tell you, it's a blessing, because I truly believe that because of this smaller location, we're going to plant more churches and faster, because we know that we don't need a 5,000 square foot facility. To have a 5,000 square foot facility, you need 125, 150 people to launch with. You don't need that with a 2,000 square foot facility. But the problem is that right now, we launched at 9:15 in the morning and then 11 o'clock. 9:15 is not a time for young people, young adults, young people with families. 9:15 is not the time. And so, like, we are currently, like, next week, our times are adjusting. Like, we're doing 10 a.m. and 11:15, and we'll have barely any time between the two services, just so that we can make it an easier transition for families, because we're maxed out. And the problem is that with the small location does come that issue with 30 kids in an 18 by 18 space. Like, our children's director Tiffany is killing it, but there's only so much you can do in that small of a space, one room, one single room. And so that's the other thing right now that we are praying through in the biggest way, is how can we maximize our space and our time and still reach the people that God is leading to us. We have a very unique church, and that, like, this past Sunday, I stood back and looked around, okay? And I counted, as I was looking around in our 11 o'clock service, 42 different people who came from being hurt by the church left the church altogether for months to even years, and have finally come back to experience God in a new way, knowing that God wasn't the one that hurt them, knowing that God wasn't the one that did the things to them. That was people, that was man. And so when I sit back, like, I look at that as a huge responsibility, because we're reaching people that usually don't want to come back to the church. And so it's been kind of crazy with that, but at the same time, like, that's a huge responsibility. So those are two big things for us, is just trying to figure out, how do you weigh these different things, how do you balance the two, but at the same time you have to be able to jump on it. And I think one of the biggest things, like, if you go back to DCPI principle, it's like, it's the boss principle, like, straight up, like, we can't do those, we can't make those decisions ourselves, so we just have to pray and pray and pray, and know that Matthew 16 says that God is going to take care of his church if we, in Matthew 28, take care of his people. And so we really stand firm on that belief and that understanding.
That's so good, man. Dude,
Yeah,
I'm pumped. I'm excited to continue to watch you guys in the movement just tear up Ohio and continue to grow, expand, and multiply. Dude, I am so encouraged by your words, and I hope that those who are listening today feel the same. With that said, people who are listening, where can they find you? Where can they find your church? Where can they find you directly, Richie, if they've got questions or they want to follow up? Or, I mean, they're sitting there in their living room listening to this and they go, I'm having a watch party this Sunday with the movement and I live in Nevada. How can they do that? Where can they go?
Yep. All of our social media is at the movement 937. And so you can go to Instagram, you can go to Facebook, you can go to YouTube, follow us, subscribe. Would definitely love to have you as a part of that. Even if you're just checking out what we're doing, connecting with you, we'd love to do that. So that's at the movement 937 on all the social media platforms. And then you can go over to our website at movementchurch.community. And we are excited about what God is doing here.
Absolutely, man. I liked everything. I just did it with the table and myself personally. I'm following, I'm subscribed now. So I'll be hearing and seeing all this stuff. I'm not kidding. I am pumped for what you're doing. I mean, you inspire us, to say the least. Like, I can't wait for launch, because we're definitely stealing some of these ideas that you've taken. I'm thinking right now, while you were speaking, like, we need to have a midweek movement group where we just say, hey, we're taking what Richie's doing, join his Zoom group that's going through James. Why recreate the wheel when you're doing it so well? I love it, dude. So good. So good.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of potential we could do maybe we record our sermons and post those throughout the week, and people can invite other people to come over and watch. Yeah, I think there's a lot of cool stuff for sure.
Hey, let me give you something real quick. All right, if that's cool.
Yeah.
Like, this has been one of the coolest things for us, because this is the one that always stumps people, and this is what we've done. Children's ministry always stumps people, because it's like, what do you do with the kids? Like, the kids don't want to sit in the living room and worship all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so what we do is we post produce, we sit down for a day, we record 4 weeks worth of kids messages, crafts, all different kinds of stuff. Okay. Snacks, everything. And then what we did was we went out, and I forget what website it was, but we ordered a bunch of custom boxes, cardboard boxes that says the kids movement on it. And what we do is, once a month, when people send us an email, like they're interested in picking it up or us shipping out to them, we put every single supply, every craft thing that they're going to need, every word search or coloring page or anything. We separate it up by week. So all they'd have to do is pull out that week, and right there is everything that they need. And they can sit down. And what we do is we time it up with our worship. So the kids worship with their families, and then they go to another room and they see the kids movements thing, and they sit there and they open their packet up and they follow along with what exactly is going to be happening live for the kids that show up. And that's been one of the coolest things for us.
I love it. We're trying to manage and figure out, how do we do children's and youth in a house church? Like, we think the same thing, that being together with the family and worship is instrument. I mean, I did that for years. I feel like I'm in a position in my life now because of that, but then creating that next step, because, going through the book of Samuel with a bunch of 4-year-olds probably ain't the best thing to do, and try to explain all those stories. Right.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, that's so good. Well, friends, like Richie said, you guys got to go follow them at the Movement 937 on all their socials. And the Movement, is it Movement Church? I'm going over movementchurch.community for their website.
Yeah.
And you can also check us out at the Table Naz on all our socials and the tablenaz.church for our website. Man, this was a good conversation. We need to have more and more church planners on, just because to get that voice out, to show people, especially in the middle of this pandemic, God is still moving, God is innovating, and he's using us to help do that. Man, Richie,
Yeah.
killing it, brother.
Yeah, really cool,
Thank
dude.
you.
Thank you for just for your heart and for thinking outside the box and following God's lead, even if it means launching in November 2020.
Right.
Because I imagine that was pretty scary while you were doing it.
Feel it.
It was awesome.
Well, before we end it and wrap up today, we like to kind of share, that peek behind the curtain, friends, that you guys can see what's going on in our lives, in our ministries, and how you can support us through prayer. So, Ryan, why don't you share with us first some prayer requests? Richie will hit you second, and I'll wrap us up, and then we'll close this podcast episode out.
Yeah. So this weekend, we're going to be doing a door-to-door. We're going to be handing out invite cards to our barbecue event we have coming up in a couple weeks. So yeah, pray for that. Pray that people respond. Pray that people don't just shut doors on us as we go door to door. So yeah, that's a good thing. And then, yeah, just pray that, we kind of can begin gaining that momentum towards our launch where we do the barbecue, and then we do a come and see, and then we do a launch team meeting. And so it's kind of just one thing into the other. I feel like we've kind of been starting and stopping a lot lately. So, and then, just, I'm still kind of in search for what God has for me as far as employment. So, I'm subbing. I will start subbing soon, but unfortunately they don't pay subs amazingly well. So I'm going to need to find some other employment as well. So just keep praying for that.
Yeah. Richie, how can we pray for you? How can we pray for the movement?
Yeah, definitely. We've got a big outreach coming up in a few weeks where we're doing an egg hunt, but it's actually like an egg hunt. So we're hiding eggs all around the community with prizes and stuff in them. And so definitely keep that in your prayers. Like that's we want to make sure that we're not just having fun with hiding Easter eggs, but it's a life-changing event for many. And so that's a big thing. Dude, this week, I told you guys earlier, my worship pastor is preaching this week, but I didn't tell you my wife and I are leading worship, and I haven't done that in like 6 years. And so like, pray for that. That's going to be, that's going to be crazy stuff. But man, it's big thing. So we're super excited about what God is doing right now.
That's awesome. This is actually, you're the second guest now in a row who has taken the preaching Sunday off the week they do podcasts. So we're just keeping a theme right here. Cody was the same way. We'll see who our next guest is. I feel you. Yeah, we'll be praying for sure. I think big thing for me is this job transition. I'm excited that I have one, but it's going to be, probably a little bit as we roll into learning dispatch. And my first little bit is going to be 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. So that's not bad, but eventually I'm going to probably work nights, I'm assuming. But other than that, man, I have a 2-year-old. So he is a toddler, a terrible toddler. Like he's with grandma and grandpa this weekend. So we'll have some peace, but we're learning parenting. We're figuring it out, but God has blessed us in so many ways. And just to echo Ryan, all the church plant stuff, the community barbecue happening in my front yard. I just hope people show up. They want to hear about it, and that we just want to learn each other's names, be good neighbors, and people can know, hey, house church is happening right here. You can walk to it every single day. You don't have to, every single Sunday. I don't know. I want my neighbors to knock on my door on Thursdays. I want them to come and be like, hey, Pastor Trevor, how can can you help me? Or, do you have sugar? Something as silly as that. Emma already does. She's my neighbor, Emma. She constantly is like, I'm sorry for bothering you, but can you help me with my hose? Can you help me with my sprinkler system? I'm like, absolutely. I'm a bother. No, you're not, Emma. I love you. I want to care for you. So yeah. Well, friends, thank you for listening. Thank you for praying for us. Thank you for being faithful listeners and supporters. Like I said, you can check out The Movement on all of their platforms. That's at The Movement 937 and their website, movementchurch.community. You can follow us, Ryan and I, and our team at The Table Naz on socials and thetablenaz.church for our website. We appreciate your support. Again, if you're listening on the Anchor app specifically and you have any questions, you can leave us a voicemail message and we can listen to that next week. Other than that, thank you for listening. Please give us a good rating so that we continue to put this podcast out there. Share it with your friends.
Like, subscribe,
all the things. That's like the most awkward thing to ask, but like it does help. We appreciate it. But until next time, my name's Trevor. I'm joined with my buddy Ryan and our new friend Richie. Have a good time. Peace out. Be good. We love you.